So I wasn't planning on announcing that, but there we go.
You're listening to the Creative Faith and Friends podcast, episode number 3.
Oh, I got you, there's no reason to chasing payment on my own, 'cause you're here to stay every night and day. I'm delighted 'cause I got you.
Well, welcome to the Creative Faith and Friends podcast, where we talk about art and art supplies and faith and what happens when you combine them. I am your host, Melissa Ohlson from pinkpaperpeppermints.com, and today we are continuing our series on color as we talk about color swatching your art supplies, and we've got some great tips and ideas for you. So now we record these episodes in advance, and since the recording of this episode, I've actually come across a couple of really fun, inspirational things that I want to share with you, so stick around to the end.
Well, hello and welcome to Creative Faith and Friends. My name is Melissa Ohlson, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Lauri. Hi, Lauri.
Hey, Mel.
And Jessica.
Hey, y'all.
And we are talking about color in a series of episodes. So last week we talked about color theory and mixing colors. And this week we are going to talk about color swatching. And so we have a couple of different things that we want to share with you about color swatching. And you might be thinking, well, what is color swatching and what do you use it for? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. One way that you can use it is to make swatches of your color products so that you can track your supply. So I've never done this, and I don't know, Jess, if you've done it, or Lauri, you've done it. I've never accidentally bought the same product 2 or possibly 3 times.
Really?
If only I could say that.
That's never happened to me.
No, never.
But if you color swatch and you make a little, maybe like a binder ring with all your ink colors or all your spray inks, depending on what you use the most, that can help you not do that double buying problem. Of course, if you check your swatch before you buy and you don't impulse buy. So tracking and knowing what colors you have, and also just when you sit down to work, flipping through it and looking at it and knowing, oh, I have these 3 pinks and I think I want to use this pink. That's one way of using color swatches. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But just there's another way that you can use swatches, which you were talking about earlier.
Yes, and that's because I'm not a big thinker when it comes to doing that. Sounds terrible.
Amen, sister.
When it comes to process, but I tend to swatch by laying down a background. Like if I'm working in my journal or a junk journal or an art journal or even a Bible, then I just start spraying. And that becomes, or spraying or painting or stamping, whatever I'm doing, that becomes my background. And that is kind of how I color swatch. I like to use it as a background to start with.
Yeah. And so you're basically testing out your color.
Yes.
To see, is this the color that I want, and testing it on the paper, which is really good.
Yes.
Everything reacts differently depending on the paper that you're using. So this ink might look one way on watercolor paper, but it's going to look totally different on mixed media paper or
that's right,
printer paper. So yeah.
Sometimes I'll put like a spotted gesso on the page or matte gel and be like, okay, let me see what it's going to do on there. And I'll spray it and I'm like, ooh, wait, what would happen if I sprayed water on top of it? So I tend to experiment a lot with my colors.
And so that's a good way of using color swatching. And then Jess talks about just using that then as a background, which is a great way to use your experimenting. But you can also save those pages and label them. So this was the Dilution Pink Strawberry, and I used it on this kind of paper. And you can kind of start collecting those swatches, as it were, so that later when you're like, I really love the way that came out, what did I do? You can go back and look at that and say, oh, I used this kind of paper with this kind of ink, and that's how I got that effect. So that's another great way of using swatching. Now, Lauri, we were talking about it earlier, and you said you don't swatch your colors that much, but you have swatched some things.
I have swatched probably watercolor and maybe some markers one time, mostly because I haven't really known what to do with it. And until now, actually, after hearing Jess talk, I would like to try her method. But until now, I've only really swatched to see what something looked like and to kind of track it and try to remember what I have, which I've actually found a better way for me to do, which is using, have you guys heard of Airtable?
No, I hadn't before you had told me. I mean, I guess I'd heard about it, but I didn't really know what it was.
It's a database, and it looks a lot like a spreadsheet. And you can put a picture in there. You could theoretically, I guess, swatch it and then put that picture on there. But like I took all of my distress inks and put them in here, so I know what I have in the distress ink pads. So when I go shopping and I see something on clearance, I can look and see if I already have that. So I didn't really keep up with it, but I feel like that's going to be a really useful way for me to remember what I have.
Yeah. Does it have an app so you can have it on your phone?
Yes, it sure does. And it's free. I mean, there's paid features that you can use. I have not used paid features yet. I just created almost like a spreadsheet. I have what color family I would consider in. So I can look at I'm looking at right now, and I can tell you I have one yellow and one orange. Everything else is blue, red, and green. So I probably need to get something else,
Of course, you need other things.
I know.
But yeah, that sounds really cool. So we'll put the link to that in the show notes.
That would help with multiple buying too.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing with swatching that really helps is just knowing what you have. Even if you don't have it with you at the store, just the act of swatching it and creating that little binder ring or that paper can help you remember later. I'm pretty sure I have that because I remember doing the swatch.
Absolutely.
So we talked about going back to what kinds of swatching you can do. So you can have just a notebook where you just write in, this is the color, and then just swatch a little bit of the color there. But there's all kinds of fun things that you can print and download or buy to help you do swatches. There are stamps that are different shapes that you can use. You can use a punch is what I was trying to think of, where you do the color on the paper and then punch it out so it's a really precise shape.
Oh, yeah.
And put that on a tag. Are there other ways that you guys have used to swatch? I know not you, Lauri, but
yeah, sorry.
I've had a journal before where I started swatching different colors. I do a page and at the top, write it all nice and neat, what I was swatching, and then swatch different colors, and then flip to the next page and do something different. I'm just not good at keeping up with that.
Yeah.
I think the Airtable app may work for me better to keep up with the products, and then the backgrounds are my heart in being able to see it on a big scale and seeing what would happen if I have this under it or this on top.
And I love your idea too, Jess, because if you just swatch some colors on a background and then come back to it later, you're not just starting with a fresh white page and absolutely can't do anything because you're so freaked out by a white page,
Right. Yeah.
You've got something laid down that you have a starting point.
It's a great warm up. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one I tend to not remember to swatch when I get something new, which is why I may or may not have bought things twice. But the one thing that I have kept up with that has really helped, and it's not a color, it's my roller stamps, which I'm a little bit obsessed with roller stamps. I love them.
Really?
Yes. I have quite a few.
They don't seem to be as popular now as they were for a little while, but I have so many, and I bought a vintage stamp rotary, one of those things that you put stamps in.
The turn.
Yeah. The turny thing.
The turn thing.
Like a wheel? Like that kind of thing?
It sits on top of your desk and the stamps click into it and you turn it manually on the top. Am I right?
Yes.
I've never heard of that. I don't even know what y'all are talking about.
Yeah, it's a stamp holder. It's vintage because back in the old days, they used to use stamps for everything in offices, to put paid or, that kind of thing. And so they had these little stamp holders. I'll show you a picture of it, Lauri. And maybe I can put a picture in the show notes to show what they look like.
There have to be other people like me who don't know what you're talking about.
Carousel. It's called a stamp holder carousel.
Carousel. That's the word I was looking for when I said turny thing.
I like turny thing. That makes sense in my head.
Turny thing. I'm good with that.
So I bought one of those. I actually have 2 of those full of roller stamps. That's how many I have. And I just love them. I don't know why. I like repeating them over and over. And I love the phrases. My favorite ones were from October Afternoon, which is
Gone.
moment of silence because they're not around anymore, sadly. But they had the best roller stamps because the phrases were really big. They weren't teeny tiny, and they stamped really well. So I love those. But I made a tag book where I labeled the top of the roller stamp with a code. So if it was Amy Tangerine, I put AT1, AT2, that kind of thing. And then I made a little tag book and I would put AT1 and I would stamp all the phrases on that tag so that when I wanted to use my stamps, I could flip through there and find the right phrase. Because without that, it's really hard to remember what phrase is on what stamp. And even when you turn them upside down and look at them,
Terrible.
yeah, you can't see them. So that was really revolutionary for me using those stamps. And that's one that I've really kept up with.
Can I just tell you that I did not understand the roller stamp?
What?
I didn't understand what you were talking about.
Oh, Lauri.
What do you now?
Well, I was thinking of something completely different.
It's probably not called roller stamp because we know that I don't use words right.
In my mind, though, I completely understood what you're saying. I'm just saying.
I thought you were talking about, remember the old wheel stamps that you like put in the handle and rolled it across the paper?
I don't know what she's talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about either.
Somebody's got to know. I'm going to try to find it for y'all.
Rotary stamp. That's what they're called. Rotary, not roller. That's why you didn't know what I see. I don't use words right.
I knew what you're talking. The roller thingy worked for me.
The roller thingy on the turny thingy.
Totally got it.
So that's another thing. It's not really swatching, but it kind of is. But you can do that with all your stamps.
Yes.
And you can do it with punches. You can punch out the shapes that you have. You can do it. I actually, now that I think about it, I actually do have that for my die cuts. I have a silhouette, but I also have a big shot. And so I've die cut all the shapes that I have and I have them in a little notebook so that I can flip through and look at the shapes that I have. That's probably because when you're visual, just looking at the name of something like on a rotary stamp or on the end of a die isn't the same as seeing it actually stamped out or cut out.
Oh, yeah. I need to do that.
You're so organized. I'm so impressed.
You are.
I'm so not organized. That's literally the only two things that I have done that with. And if you could see my art room right now, I would be so humiliated if anyone could see it.
And I feel you deeply with that.
Okay. Girls, I feel the need to defend myself. I found what I'm talking about. And it was a thing way back in the day. Stampin' Up! Had it. It was called Stampin' Around. And it was a roller wheel rubber stamp. And you'd stick it on a handle and you'd roll it on your paper. You'd roll it through the ink and then you'd roll it across your paper.
I do think I know what you're talking about. I think I've seen them with for kids, like with cows or pigs, and you just roll it across and they have a little line of cows or pigs.
Hey, I did not say they were fabulous. That's just what I thought we were talking about.
Don't they have those in like the identity theft too, where you just roll it on top of your information?
Yes, I think you might be right.
I think I might be too.
So next week, we're going to do a show on words and how to use them.
That would be great.
It'll just be for us, though.
Yeah.
Y'all don't have to listen to it.
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay. So what else about swatching? Oh, I was going to tell you there are tons of companies that have printables. And I know that Jennifer McGuire, I don't know if you've ever watched any of her videos on YouTube. She's a stamper and card maker, super talented and sweet. She has a download on her website of a printable to make ink swatches.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you duck it, printable swatch sheets, swatch papers, words. I'll put it in the show notes. How's that?
That's a great idea.
Printable swatch cards.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of swatch printables, free printables, depending on the company. I'm not sure, but I think Dilutions might have one too. So if you're not feeling real creative about the swatch making and you don't really want to make your own, look for your favorite companies on their website and see if they have a printable that you can use.
It's a great idea.
I think too, sometimes when you swatch, we mentioned Bob Ross in our previous episode, but a lot of times that's where I find my happy accidents or happy little trees is you're swatching something and you're like, oh, wait, I like how that happened. I like that color and
Mhm.
how it edged right there. And if the
Mhm.
water touched it, I love how that changed it. And a lot of times you find that your favorite go-to color or technique when you're swatching it, the way I do it anyway, and play around with it.
Yeah, that's a really great point. That experimenting and playing is how you figure things out that you like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, let's talk about fun finds for this week. My fun find is a company called Waffle Flower. They make stamps and die cuts, and they actually have a whole line of swatching products.
Really?
Ah,
Yeah, they've got color wheel stamps and they've got swatching stamps where you stamp the little squares and then you can stamp the colors of your ink into the little squares.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then they have die cuts, so you can die cut them all out and make them real pretty. If you like everything to be neat and even, the die cuts will cut them out evenly. So I will link those in the show notes, but they're really, really neat. The color wheel one especially is really pretty, and I can see using them for a lot of other things besides just swatching your products.
That's awesome.
for sure. That's neat.
Yeah.
So Lori, what's your fun find for this week? You know what?
We didn't. What about
We didn't talk about our
inks?
spray
That's
inks.
right. I was going to get back to that.
We totally forgot that. We wanted to talk about spray inks because we're talking about color this week. Or these couple of shows, we're talking about color. So we wanted to talk about our favorite color products, and spray inks are one of those products.
For sure.
I thought I was totally skipping a whole segment. So, spray inks. My absolute favorite spray inks are the Dilutions Shimmer inks. They are so beautiful when you spray them. A lot of things claim to be shimmery and they're not.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the Dilution spray inks are absolutely beautiful. And I will link you to the shop where I buy them. She's got really good prices and she ships really fast, but I just love them so much. And not just the shimmer ones, those are my favorites, but also just her regular ones are so rich in color and just so beautiful, and they blend really beautifully. And those are just my favorites. Now I know there are lots and lots of brands. I used to love Heidi Swap's
Mm-hmm.
Color
Yes.
Shine, but they discontinued those. So I was so excited when Dilutions came out with the shimmer. So what about you guys?
Well, I ordered some of those because of you, and haven't hardly done anything with them because I don't know what to do. So I think you still need to do us a video, Melissa, showing us
I
how to
know.
use those
Yeah.
those spray inks. That would be so awesome.
Well, this is kind of a sneak announcement, but I've been contemplating this for a while, but I actually started filming a class on spray ink. So I think it's
Ooh.
going to be my first
Yay.
class.
Oh, that's fabulous.
That's awesome.
And it is mostly because of you, Laura. You were like, you have to tell me how to use these. And I have other people have said that to me before when I've posted pictures. And so
Yeah.
I tend to overthink the class thing a lot. I'm like, that it has to be a certain way and I have to have certain software. So the last time we talked about this, Jess, I think you said, you know what, you just need to do it. Just
Yes.
do it.
That's right.
So I actually started, and
Oh,
so
yay.
Yay.
it's going to be short. It's going to be just on spray inks, and it's going to be short. So I wasn't planning on announcing that, but there we go.
You're welcome.
Yay.
So were you asking me a question before I just kind of went off the rails there, Melissa?
I wanted to know about your favorite inks, but you said you bought those, but you haven't really used
Yeah.
them.
I have some Tim Holtz spray inks that I also haven't really, I've used them, but nothing major. I haven't figured out how to mix them or how to make them look cool and splatty and all that kind of stuff. So I've just kind of sprayed here and there. So I have no favorites. But they are the Dilutions one are shimmery. I like them a lot.
Yeah. I actually don't have those, the Dilutions shimmer ones. I've got just the regular Dilutions, and they're really bright. But you know me, I like a little grunge in mine.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I actually have two favorites, and I'm going to say one, then I'm going to go into the other because it's my fun find for the week. But I love the Distress Oxide sprays, and those are pretty readily available.
Yes.
And they react with water so cool. I love to spray them and then spray water on top of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they make a really interesting effect on your paper with a cool background, and you really don't have to do anything else.
Well, I might have to try those because I had some distress inks, the ones that had the little sponge on the top. Do you remember
The
those?
daubers or
The
whatever they're called.
daubers, yeah,
Yes.
and they got all rotten. They got these little moldy blobs. I'm sorry if you're trying to eat breakfast or
Ew.
something while you're listening. But yeah, they got these weird like things, and so I just kind of never used them again, and I didn't buy distress inks because of that. So, but you haven't had that problem with yours?
No. And the oxides, now I have some spray stain, and it's cool,
Mhm.
but the oxides have my heart when we're talking about the Tim Holtz,
Yes.
because they react with water so cool.
You're giving me more things to buy.
Sorry.
Yes. And I bought them because of two people, Jessica and our friend Ingrid, who is Caratootie,
Yeah.
because Ingrid told me that you can spray them and add a little bit of water and use them like watercolor.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I gotta have this. So I have a bunch, but haven't used them for a whole lot yet.
Right.
Story of my life.
Well, that's actually one way that I use the dilutions too, is to paint with them because
Oh.
they're so saturated.
And the brights, are
Yeah.
so bright.
Great
Mhm.
idea.
My other favorite would be the Lindy Stamp Gang, and that would be my fun find, because if you want to order a really neat, really different spray ink, their Starburst sprays are so fascinating because they are a mix of two different colors. So when you spray them, you have no control of which colors are going to land where and how they're going to separate. But they
Wow.
are such a beautiful background.
Ooh, it sounds like
Ooh,
it.
that sounds really cool.
Yes. And I want to give you a tip if you're using spray inks. When you finish, especially if you're using the Lindy Stamp Gang or the Distress Oxides, when you finish, get you a little mug or cup of hot water. You just sink hot, not like you don't have to boil it, but
Yeah.
take your spray top off of your bottle and spray it in the sink. Like put the little spray in that would go in the bottle in your cup of hot water and spray it into your sink until it runs clear, and it will keep your bottles functioning well for a long time,
Oh,
because sometimes those little
Really?
dyes and particles can get in the sprayer and
Yes.
stop it up. And I don't know if there's a way to fix them once they're stopped up.
that is a good tip because
That
I
is a
have
great tip.
several bottles that I had to replace the cap because it was
Yes.
stopped up and I still had a lot of ink.
Yes. I have a Heidi Swap Colors story. Is that what they were called? What were
Color
they called?
Shine. I
Color
think.
Shine. I have a gold, and I'm dying to find another good gold because mine doesn't spray anymore. But I absolutely love it. It's like the perfect shiny
I know,
gold,
that
and
was
you
my
can't get it.
favorite.
Yes. Ugh.
Well, Lindy Stamp Gang has the Glitz Spritz is what it's called, and it's a transparent glimmer, real shiny.
Ooh.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Find something else to find.
Going shopping after this.
Leave it to me.
Okay, so that was weird because we kind of mixed up the fun finds
Mhm.
with the spray inks. But okay, so I think we're ready to talk about the challenge for this week. Yeah, or did I forget anything?
Well, only Jess has shared her fun find.
See, why am I talking?
Lauri's got to share hers because it's kind of a tip for spray inks too.
Totally goes along with Jessica's and our whole subject. So Tim Holtz has, I think it's called a splat box, which is
Mhm.
basically just a cut down cardboard box. And I made my own. I think Jessica made her own. Well,
Yes,
my husband made mine, but Jess made her own.
I made my own. I mean, I cut it and everything.
Jess is much more handy than I am. Yes. So my husband made my spray box, but Jess made her own because she's far more handy than I am. But you can either buy this box or cut one down, and it's really just look up the Tim Holtz one because it definitely has a certain shape to it, but it's super helpful because you just put your products in the box that you want to spray, and it kind of contains your overspray so that it doesn't get all
Yes.
over your desk and all your other things. So it's a pretty awesome little situation.
Did you or your husband use a tutorial to make your box?
Oh gosh, no. My husband's an engineer. He just does stuff.
And if you see the design of it, it's not difficult to make
No.
at all.
It's like a triangle on the side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're basically cutting a box down. And I think a big disadvantage is spray inks is the mess. Like a lot of people hold back from
Yes.
using them because of the mess.
Mm-hmm.
This prevents any of that.
Yeah. And I will say now, like I said, Tim Holtz makes one, and I believe his is collapsible. Like you can store it flat and then just put it together when you want to use it. I have the space mine's not huge anyways, but I have the space to store it. And I'm not one, I don't have a lot of patience. Like Jess said, I don't either. I'm not going to put it together every time I want to use it. Either it has to be there or it's not.
Yeah. Well, my method is I just have ink on everything.
Really?
Including my shoes. Yeah, because I don't use a box, and I always think to myself, I should, lay out some paper, or I should. There's probably videos of me doing this where I just start spraying, and you see it go everywhere. I don't know. I just can't remember to do it, or I'm not patient enough, or I should try and make a box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what else is I've done before is I put it in my trash. My trash is almost always full. I have, like a 13-gallon trash can, and I just put it on the top and spray it and then take it out.
That's a good idea.
I mean, it's all paper and,
yeah.
my craft room.
You mean your craft room trash?
Yes.
I was sitting there thinking, I'm not sure I could do that. That probably wouldn't end well.
No, don't do that. You might get a lot more than you were bargaining for.
Yes.
It'd be really mixed media.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now are we ready for the challenge?
Yes.
We are, finally.
I'm sorry. I really did not do well on this episode.
That's all right.
They're just seeing how our brains really work.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it might not be something you wanted to see, but...
Yeah, sorry about that.
So, okay, this week's challenge is we want you to create a swatch, and you can do either one. You can swatch a product that you have a lot of. So maybe it's watercolors or spray inks or markers, whatever we all have that one favorite supply that we really have a lot of. And you can swatch that because you want to track it and create a little swatch book. Or if you're thinking, that's just not me, I'm not going to track my supplies, but you want to do the swatching, then we want you to create a swatch background like what Jessica was describing, where just test out some of your products on some of your favorite paper or in your journal. You could do it on paper and then put it in your journal, or just do it directly in your journal and create a background by swatching the different colors. So that is your challenge for this week. And then we will be doing the challenge as well. And we will post our pictures on Instagram, and one of us will probably do a video, or maybe all three, and it'll either be on YouTube or IGTV. And so you can see what we come up with for swatching.
Absolutely.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to see everybody's swatches. And I already have some ideas from what you guys said, so I'm really excited.
Yay.
So thank you guys so much for listening, especially today. It was all out of order, if you're still here. And we're having so much fun doing this. We hope that you're having fun listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
So as I mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to share with you 2 more fun things I've found since we recorded this episode. Both of them are by some of my favorite artists. And the first is absolute serendipity, because the artist, Robin Marie Smith, is participating in the 100 Days Challenge, and she is actually doing swatches for her daily practice. And they are so inspiring. So I will link her in the show notes so you can follow her and get some inspiration for your swatches. And the second is another 2 of my favorite artists, Sandy Keene and Ray Missigman, and they teach at pop-up art classes, and they're about to launch a course all about color. So if that's something that you want to learn more about, I know those 2 will be creating an amazing class, and I will link them in the show notes as well. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation today. We would love to hear your thoughts about it. We'd love to hear your favorite brands of spray ink, or any tips that you might like to share about ink or swatching. You can find us on Instagram to chat about it, or leave us a comment on the blog, and we'd love to chat with you there about it. And you can find links to everything we talked about in our show notes at pinkpaperpeppermints.com/003. And if you have a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts so that other creative friends can find us, we would be so appreciative of that. I'm Melissa Ohlson, and I hope you have a week filled with peace and grace, and we'll see you next time here on Creative Faith and Friends.